Look, I need to tell you about something that happened in Detroit. A woman named Zina Thomas walked into a county recorder's office. She handed over a quitclaim deed, and the clerk said, "Great, that'll be recorded by end of business." One problem, she didn't own the house. She forged the signature, sold that home to an unsuspecting buyer, then did it again and again, over 30 times. And here's what kept her going for so long. The county recorder's office is legally required to accept any document that looks official. That's the system protecting your deed right now. So when I say they're coming for your deed, let me tell you exactly who they is. It's 3 groups, actually, all using different playbooks, all ending with the same result: your name disappearing from your property. Group 1, the criminals, the forgers, the scammers who file fake documents and sell homes out from under the people who own them. Group 2, government, through eminent domain. They want your land for economic development, which increasingly means handing it to private developers. And Group 3, law enforcement through civil forfeiture. They can seize your property without ever charging you with a crime. Different threats, different tactics, same outcome. You lose the deed. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how each of these works, why 2026 is shaping up to be a pressure cooker for homeowners, and the 3 documents that create a legal fortress around your property. Because what's coming isn't some future threat. It's already here. And most homeowners won't know until someone else claims they own their house. Now, you might be thinking, come on, Matt, deed theft? That sounds like something from a bad legal thriller. I wish. The FBI's Internet Crime Report, this is 2024 data, logged 9,359 real estate fraud complaints, losses totaling $173.6 million. And that's just what got reported. But here's where it gets personal. Seniors, people 60 and older, filed only 19% of those complaints, but they accounted for 44% of the total losses. Criminals are deliberately targeting older homeowners, people who've owned their homes for decades, people with equity, people who check their mail, not their county recorder's website. And the industry data is even worse. Funding Shield's Q1 2025 report found that nearly 47% of all real estate transactions showed indicators of wire or title fraud. That's not a rounding error. That's a system-wide vulnerability. So let's talk about how this actually works, because understanding the mechanics, this is only half the battle, but it is an important half. There are 2 fronts you need to defend. The first is the financial pressure. That's the fraud side. The second is the legal infrastructure. That's the government side. So let's start with the fraud. Here's what most people don't understand about county recording offices. They're not gatekeepers. They're filing cabinets with a pulse. California's Department of Real Estate put it bluntly: anyone can go down to a county recorder's office and present a document for recording, whether that document is legitimate or fraudulent. There is no true safeguard or deterrent. That's a direct quote from the state, admitting their own system has no immune system. New Jersey, same thing. As long as a document meets statutory recording guidelines, New Jersey law requires the county clerk to accept and record the document. So if someone forges your signature, bribes a notary, or just uses a deep fake to pass remote verification, they can record a deed transfer in your name without your knowledge. And you won't find out until you try to sell, refinance, or worse, someone shows up claiming they own your house. Philadelphia just started using AI to flag deceased signers on deeds in 2025, which tells you how primitive the rest of the country still is. Now, let's talk about the other front, the legal one, because it's not just criminals who can take your deed. The government can too. And they've been expanding that power for 20 years. Kelo versus New London, 2005. Supreme Court ruled that the government can seize private property not just for roads and schools, but for economic development. That means if a city decides a shopping mall would generate more tax revenue than your home, they can take it, pay you fair market value, and hand it to a developer. Texas just passed a GOP resolution in December calling for eminent domain reform. And it's needed because the law right now allows takings for projects primarily driven by economic development and public-private partnerships that provide private economic return. Translation there, your property can be seized to make someone else money. Indiana's working on a bill right now, HB 1105. That would require the government to pay 200% of fair market value plus relocation costs to seize family farms. You know why they're doing that? To make it financially painful enough that the government looks elsewhere. That's not paranoia. That's a sitting state representative saying, we need to make it harder for them to take your stuff. Iowa just passed a bill in January banning eminent domain for carbon pipelines because private companies were using government seizure power to run pipelines through family farms. This is happening right now in multiple states. And then there's the civil asset forfeiture. And get this, under civil forfeiture, the government doesn't need to convict you of a crime to take your property. They just need to prove by a preponderance of evidence that your property was probably involved in a crime. Not that you committed the crime, that the property did. Maryland law allows the government to seize houses, land, vehicles, and money under drug-related forfeiture, even if criminal charges are dropped. Now, there's a bill in Congress right now, the FAIR Act, trying to raise the burden of proof, which tells you the current standard is too low. And then there's this. Sorry, let me rephrase. Here's what really twists the knife. The government can file a declaration of taking and seize your property immediately before litigation even begins. You have to fight through the courts to get your own house back. Now, again, I know what some of you are thinking, Matt, this sounds like a lot of fear-mongering conspiracy theory stuff. I get it. And honestly, I'd rather be wrong. But when the FBI is publishing reports, when state legislatures are passing emergency reform bills, when 47% of transactions show fraud indicators, when county recorders admit they have no verification system, at what point does it stop being paranoid and start being prepared? I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to make sure you don't get blindsided by something you could have prevented. And I've got nothing to sell here in case that's what you were thinking. So let's set aside the cynicism and talk about prevention. There are 3 documents that create what I call a legal tripwire system around your property. Think of them as early warning alarms plus armor. Document 1, an owner's title insurance policy. Most people only get lender's title insurance when they buy a house. That protects the bank, not you. An owner's policy protects your equity. If someone files a fraudulent lien, forges a deed, or a title defect surfaces years later, the policy covers your legal defense and financial losses. And here's the thing, title insurance is a one-time premium. You pay it once at closing. But if you bought your house years ago and skipped it, you can still get one. Call a title company, ask for a standalone owner's policy. It's usually a few $100 depending on your home's value. This is your financial backstop if fraud happens. Document number 2, a Homestead Declaration. Now, most states allow you to file a Homestead Declaration or exemption. This doesn't prevent fraud directly, but it creates a legal record that you occupy the property as your primary residence. More importantly, in many states, it provides protection against certain creditor claims and can complicate forced sales. It's a simple form. You file it with your county recorder. It costs almost nothing, and it puts one more legal obstacle between your home and anyone trying to take it. Document 3, a living trust or land trust. This is where active defense gets real. You see, when you hold property in your personal name, it shows up in public records. That's a target list for criminals. A living trust moves the property into a trust entity. Your name isn't on the deed anymore. The trust is. You're still the beneficiary, you still control it, it's still yours, but the public record doesn't advertise, hey, here's a 68-year-old with $400,000 in equity living alone. A land trust goes even further, in some states by keeping the beneficiary anonymous. And if your state doesn't, there's still a legal structure to preserve anonymity in basically every state. So this creates liquidity for you, meaning flexibility in how you manage and protect the asset without giving up any control. And a state attorney can set this up for a few hundred to a couple $1,000s, depending on your state and how deep you want to go with your protection, because you can go deep if you want to. Now, if you've got nobody in mind, get started at hidemyequity.com. Now, here's what I want you to understand. If fraud happens, if someone forges your deed and records it, Your remedy is something called a quiet title action. That's a lawsuit where you prove in court that you are the rightful owner. It takes 3 to 6 months minimum, sometimes years. It requires an attorney, court fees, title searches, and serving notice to every possible claimant. It's expensive, it's stressful, and it puts you on defense when you should have been on offense. The 3 documents I just described, they're cheaper than a single hour of litigation, and they work before the problem starts. So here's the bottom line. You worked hard for that house. You paid the mortgage. You maintained it. You earned it. And the system, the one that was supposed to protect your ownership, has holes in it big enough to drive a forged quitclaim deed right through. 2026 isn't some magic date where everything changes. The threat is already here. The question is whether you treat your asset like something worth defending. Now, you've probably seen the headlines. Trump's proposed ban on institutional investors. Blackstone, for example, pulling back. And every talking head on cable news is saying the same thing. The housing market crash is coming. But here's what they're not telling you. The bond data, the Fannie Mae policy changes, what Wall Street is actually doing with their money right now, none of it points to a crash. It points to something else entirely different. And that's why I pulled this video out here for you to watch next. Because if you just built a fortress around your property, you need to understand what's actually happening to its value. The institutional money isn't disappearing, it's just moving. And where it's going changes everything for homeowners like you. See you there.